are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast presented by Stance. Stance believes that the perfect fit matters more than fitting in. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. I am your host, Marcus Mosier. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. And we are live on YouTube right now answering your Twitter questions. But before we do that, Landon, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing good, watching two hapless NFC East teams barely able to hold on to the ball. Happy that I don't have to root for one of these teams currently. Not only long term, but just in the playoff situation, obviously playoff scenarios make strange bedfellows often, but the fact that we don't have to necessarily root for either one of these teams is fun to just kind of watch them be hapless.
And I was watching the Seahawks-Rams game, and you could say the exact same thing.
Yep.
So nothing changes at all. All right, let's get to your Twitter questions because a lot of people had some really good questions about this team going into Week 16. And Lana, this is a good one. I actually think you responded to, but somebody sent us all of the kill calls from Dak.
Oh yeah,
in the Week 15 game, and a lot of them were just for modest gains. Like I'm looking at it now. Tony Pollard for 4 yards, Tony Pollard for 2 yards, Zeke for 3, Zeke for 2, Zeke for no gain, Zeke for 2. So on and so forth. But
yeah,
what's your takeaway from so many kill calls going into basically modest gains?
I think that it was probably a very concerted effort by Patrick Graham to kind of play it with havoc with those kind of pre-snap reads and trigger Dak into killing into whatever he's trying to trap him into killing into, right? So I think that ultimately it's just part of the whole trend in general. Of kind of hiding what you're doing pre-snap to smart quarterbacks and then changing it post-snap and situations like that where you can show a blitz, or you can align a certain way, which will call Dak would think, okay, maybe I want to kill to a run here, and then suddenly just send a blitz that late that can kind of expose the trap that they've set there. Those are the kind of hard things to kind of to prepare for, especially if they're being done specifically for you. So. Sometimes the other team is well coached and they're professionals. It's that's the nature of the NFL, and you're not going to win those all the time.
I would also say sometimes killing a play just means avoiding a really, really bad play.
Yeah.
So you might see a Tony Pollard gain for 2 yards and think, well, why did they check into that play? Because the other play might have been worse, right?
Yeah.
It might have been a screen, but you had like a wide receiver screen, but all of a sudden the corner came up and played press coverage, or it might have been. So it could have been whatever, right? So sometimes killing into a 2-yard run isn't the worst thing in the world, right?
It feels like it falls under the category of a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, right? Like that's good information to have, but ultimately it's like we don't know what the package play was. We all we know was the play that he killed too. We don't know what was actually called. So
it
that's
could be
really
like a deep.
point.
It could be like a deep in route, and they're sending 6 guys, and that there's no chance that you're gonna have time to throw that ball, right? So hey, let's check into a run and let's live to see another day. Right.
In the same vein that sometimes you get caught with a bad play call versus what they have called on defense. Same sort of thing here. Sometimes they call the defense right, or they get you into a spot where you kill into something and it's not the result that you wanted, even though you had 2 plays you play called in the huddle. The first one may have been a way worse result than just like a 2-yard gain or whatever we're presupposing that was bad.
I agree. All right. Our next question. This one from Bruce. And actually, I met Bruce. I met this guy at the Fantasy Football Expo.
Cool.
Which is really cool. He's a big Cowboy fan. So he wants to know, what do you think about the Cowboy strategy for the 2022 draft months out? I'll just give you my thought. I think they're going to continue to load up on defense, right? I think they're going to look for probably maybe a linebacker, maybe some more cornerback depth. I just see them continuing to throw bodies and numbers at defense. But what are your thoughts?
I feel like they have some things that they need to answer first on and free agency, and people that are on their roster right now are on limited years to figure out exactly where they want to go first, because ultimately you may get yourself into the first round and find yourself selecting a wide receiver again, or a position that you couldn't imagine right now simply because you don't.
That's possible.
The
However,
roster changes.
it seems kind of unlikely. I think they do that, right? Because it seems like they're going to bring back one of Amari or Michael Gallup, right?
I definitely agree. I'm not suggesting that
Yeah.
like that's
You said
my
it could
front
happen,
runner, but
right.
I'm saying like at this point we're so far out, really anything could happen. I would tend to agree. Like generally speaking, if I had to put money on it, defense seems like a very smart bet here. It's simply for the fact that you have some guys on some 1-year deals, and defense is not something that's sticky. Like you can't just continue to roll out the same group on multiple seasons and expect similar results. It
Yeah.
changes a lot based on opponents, so they need to continue to improve. They can't just rest in their laurels there. So I do agree that you do want to keep reloading the defense, because that's a spot where you just can't trust year to year that your players are going to play the exact same way previously, in the way that you can't. It's not as stable as offense and predictable.
Edge rushers, right? You can always use more edge rushers,
Yep,
especially with Lawrence getting older. You could use they need another off the ball linebacker, and you know how much I hate drafting off the ball linebackers in the
you
first
love it.
round.
You love it. You've made
Yeah,
yourself clear. You're
but
very, very big fan.
if you're drafting, let's say in the late 20s or hopefully in the mid
Oh,
30s,
we're gonna
right?
drop the name here.
30s. Well, I'm not gonna drop a name. I'm just saying. I
We're
Devin
not gonna
Lloyd's a
say.
really good player. I wouldn't hate a linebacker at that stage, right? If you
Yeah.
can find the right one, like a guy that can actually run sideline to sideline, because that's what this defense needs. I still wouldn't love it. I would prefer defensive line, offensive line.
I was gonna say offensive tackle.
You're not a big Terrence Steele fan?
I'm just concerned long term.
Yeah.
Like I like Terrence Steele more as a right tackle. What's the plan for Tyron Smith beyond a couple years from now? I love Tyron Smith, and I want him to play every single snap that he plays in the NFL for the Dallas
Yeah.
Cowboys. But I don't. I need a more than solid replacement, someone on the horizon that we can make that transition at some point. As sad as that makes me even say.
It's also worth mentioning, Connor Williams, a free agent. Connor McGovern going into the final year of his deal next year.
Yep.
Zach Martin, still really good, getting a little bit older now.
Yeah.
We'll see about Lyle Collins' contract situation. Because of the suspension, all his guaranteed money is voided. Offensive line is a pretty sneaky need for the Cowboys next year.
I agree.
All right, let's take a quick break so I can tell you guys about On Location. Super Bowl 56 at SoFi is less than 100 days away, and I can tell you Washington and Philadelphia will not be there.
Nope.
On Location is the official hospitality partner of the NFL. It's the only place to score a once-in-a-lifetime Super Bowl ticket and experience package. Select your exact seats and choose from elite experiences featuring an exclusive pregame celebration with NFL legends, 5-star LA hotels, and food by the great Wolfgang Puck. Visit onlocationexp.com/SB56 for more information, or search Super Bowl On Location. That is onlocationexp.com/SB56. All right, Landon, let's get to some more questions. A lot of questions about Blake Jarwin. I think you know why, but somebody actually wanted to know, do the Cowboys, are they missing just Blake Jarwin in general in the passing part of the offense?
I think they could really use him right now. I'll tell you this much: against the kind of defenses that they're facing lately. If you could get the opportunity to have both Jarwin and Schultz out there, I think it would be incredibly useful, because it would just give you another guy to safely attack the. I mean, that is what. I mean, you want to talk about somebody who could take advantage of some cover 2 looks. That is what Blake Jarwin does extremely well. And that's why he actually got that contract, is because he's a guy who you could send up the seam. He could be a red zone threat. Schultz is good at that stuff. There's no doubt, and he has some quickness and receiving ability. But it was always Jarwin that we looked at as the guy that was the receiving specialist at tight end. So if they're able to find a way to get him back and playing again, I really think it will help specifically with the kind of shell coverages that they're seeing, that they're facing on offense. And look, I mean, all you have to do is look at how much of a difference this offense had with when they were able to target Schultz more last week. I think that you can pair off a couple of Schultz's targets plus add a few more for Jarwin, and I think you're going to find a incredibly high rate of success. And then I think that in a way that it may be surprising, that will further open things up on the outside for your guys, because it's going to draw the safeties closer to the middle of the field, and it's going to open things up for like the turkey hole shots and that sort of thing.
I agree. I don't get the sense that he's coming back though this season.
Yeah, we don't get any kind of solid information there, and maybe McEwen can be that guy. Like you keep seeing,
he's just not the athlete though.
He's just not the same kind of athlete. But I think you hope that you could get another guy kind of operating in that area of the field a little bit, because I think it would help kind of free up not only Schultz but the guys on the outside to have just someone else who's a reliable, safe target in the middle.
It does make you wonder, like, what are they going to do at the tight end spot next year? Because this would basically be 2 years in a row where Blake Jarwin got injured pretty early in the season and wasn't able to return. Schultz is a free agent, and I think my thoughts on Schultz have changed over the last couple of months. I know earlier in the season we were really high on him, kind of thinking the Cowboys should bring him back. I'm starting to think they'll be okay if they lose him. I don't think that's a huge loss. I really don't.
Yeah,
I know you're a Schultz guy. Go ahead.
It's not even just that though. My concern is that it's a position that's very difficult. It's one of the few positions left in the NFL where you can't really draft a guy.
No, well, not
or immediately want returns.
Play.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like that's the issue. I mean, even Kyle Pitts, he's having success being used in an untraditional manner. But if you have a need for a traditional tight end in your offense, tight end is still one of the few positions where you just don't see a lot of guys who have a lot of early success. So that's why I'm more feeling like you should keep Schultz, because I'm just sick as a Cowboys fan of us training up all the league's tight ends and then having, I mean, half the teams have our tight ends on their rosters.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy position to fill if you can't get something in free agency. So I would rather spend the money on a guy that we know than have to kind of constantly chase this dragon of free agent tight ends year after year while waiting for a potential guy to draft and develop.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying though. I mean, Schultz he didn't finish his start,
right?
He what?
He just disappears too much.
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
I think he's so average at best as a blocker. And listen, I really like Schultz. Like, I think there's some things that he can do really well after the catch and all that kind of stuff. But if you bring back like Amari and you do something at receiver, I think you can kind of mitigate it. Like, I like Sean McEwen enough. I like Jeremy Sprinkle enough that I think you can get by if you have to. My thing is, Landon, you're going to have one of Blake Jarwin or Dalton Schultz next year. I think that's absolutely the case. They're not going to go into next season having both those guys off the team, right?
I just feel like, Jarwin, I think Jarwin just really can't block. I mean, despite what some national media folks may say, I think Schultz can block in some specific situations very well. But I think asking him to line up as a Y and knock a defensive end back on a straightforward run, that's not what he does. So if you need that guy, then you know that you need Schultz plus a Sprinkle or an upgraded Sprinkle type,
a Blake Bell.
Yeah, you needed. Honestly, I think they should have re-signed Blake Bell.
And I said that this morning. Yeah, I really feel like they missed Blake Bell in this offense.
So I think
he's a better blocker than Sprinkle, and he's far more athletic. So not only can he like block on the move better than Sprinkle can, but he can also, if you need him in the passing game to like run like one of those PA waggles and just run to the flat, he can do that, right?
Yeah. And that's what I wrote in my notes about Schultz yesterday. I think was something to the extent of you need him to catch a bootleg, you need him to run the seam. Schultz is your guy. You need him to cut off a guy on a blocking on a backside zone. He's your guy. He can hinge block. That's
Yep.
great. You need him to block a guy at the defensive end off the line to create space. I wouldn't ask him to do that. Do you need him to shield block, stock block a defensive back alone in space on a screen? I wouldn't ask him to do that either. So, like, I just think that he's limited as a blocker in what specifically kind of blocks he does well. And I think if you need someone who is a full-time blocker at tight end, then you need to be ready to use Connor McGovern or have a tight end that is specifically a block, like an inverse Schultz, right? A very good blocker who is a kind of good receiver.
I agree with you. All right, let's get to some more questions. I like this one, Landon. What's your favorite Cowboys Christmas Eve, or day after Christmas Eve game? So basically, right around this time, favorite Cowboy game.
All right, you go first because I'm looking something up real quick to see what the date was on a certain game.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember this one as well. So there was a game, I believe it was early 1990s.
Oh
Cowboys
no,
played.
you're gonna
No,
do
no, no.
mine.
This is a good one. Is this the Cardinal game? Is this the one you're thinking
No,
about?
no.
Okay, so the Cowboys played the Cardinals, and I doggone it, I cannot think of the year which it was, but Cowboys absolutely destroyed the Cardinals. I believe it was on Christmas Day, and that game actually was a game that most people in America watched. Do you know why?
No, why?
Because that is the game in which they filmed the movie scenes for the movie Jerry Maguire.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. I was gonna say in Any Given Sunday, but
No. This is the one they filmed the Jerry Maguire one where Rod Tidwell catches.
Yeah, totally.
So there you go. That's the best one I got for you. They don't have a lot of good Christmas Day.
So this isn't a Christmas game. It's a New Year's game. But I think in the tradition of the holidays, to me, obviously the one that really sticks out to like the holidays, kind of around the holidays game is the Emmitt Smith broken collarbone game.
Yeah.
I mean, when we sealed the deal for the playoffs against the Giants, which I was thinking about that too. Just playing the Giants recently, time at the end of the year, it always makes me think of that game. I'll never forget watching that game as a kid, and I was 13 years old, and just being in complete awe that he was able to finish that game. It was just amazing.
Yeah, that one's a really good rewatch. By the way, 1995 was the game. It was a Monday night game. Kevin Williams had a monster game, 9 catches for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cowboys won 37-13. Larry Centers caught 15 passes in that game. Do you remember Larry Centers?
I do remember Larry Centers. Larry Centers was a weird anomaly in the NFL that he was a fullback who caught passes at a rate that were, he kind of reminded you of what was the guy that with Parcells? God.
Oh, Richie Anderson, of course.
Yeah, he's like a bigger Richie Anderson, right? Like, Richie Anderson, another incredible guy just a glue guy, a utility guy you'd love to have on your team. Just a fantastic player.
I wish we Cowboys had more fun Christmas games to talk about. There was that one in 2010 when they played the Cardinals, I think on Christmas Day, when Jason Garrett was the coach, right?
Yeah.
They lost on a field goal right at the end of the game. Anyways. All right. Next question. This one from @MX_Dallas. It's not a question, but can you explain the outcomes if the season ended today and how we can get each seed? Sure. I have it pulled up right now. We can do it. So,
the playoff scenarios?
Yes. Yeah. If the playoffs ended today, the Cowboys would be the 2 seed and they would play the Minnesota Vikings in round 1. How do you like that matchup for Dallas?
I love it, man. I mean, as far as available teams to play in the playoffs, then I'll take that absolutely.
Okay, how about this? Would you rather play Minnesota or the Saints in round 1?
Minnesota, I think. Don't you? I don't know, man. Saints. The Saints, like, their defense is so good.
But if you score 13 points, you're probably winning, right?
If you score 13 points, I look, I mean, I don't know. Like, I agree. I think I
actually
understand what you're thinking, but
this sounds weird. I
jeez.
trust Kirk Cousins way more in a playoff game. Cousins has actually been pretty decent in the playoffs, by the way.
Yeah, I guess I guess you're right. I just feel like you have a better chance against that defense in the state that it's in currently. And Kurt is at best a 50-50 proposition. So
He's a 50-50 proposition. What is Taysom Hill?
that's true, but at least, but again, the defense. I don't know. I don't think it's as cut and dry, but I do think that I would like either one of those two
Okay.
teams as my option versus San Francisco. Let's say.
Yeah. All right. So for the Cowboys to get the 2 seed, they basically need to end up in a 3-way tie with Tampa Bay and either Arizona or Los Angeles, or because they don't have the tiebreaker with Tampa Bay. It's very unlikely that Tampa Bay is going to lose any of their final 3 games, although it's maybe more likely now with some of the injuries,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I still don't see that
No.
because their schedule is at Carolina, at the Jets, and then home against Carolina. It doesn't seem very likely.
I'm thinking Carolina twice, man. I mean, God.
I know. So Dallas needs to end up in a 3-way tie, and that gets to be a little hard considering the Cowboys play Arizona here in 2 weeks, right? So if they beat the Cardinals here in Week 17, they need kind of the Rams to probably win out as well, and the Rams could do it. So assuming the Rams win here on Tuesday night, the Rams will play at Minnesota next week, at Baltimore, and then home against the 49ers. Their schedule is pretty tough. So I think it seems pretty likely the Cowboys are the 3 seed, Landon. That seems kind of the way it's going.
That does seem good.
However, if the Cowboys win out, let's say that happens, right? They beat Washington here next week. They beat the Cardinals here in Week 17, and obviously they beat the Eagles in Week 18. And the Packers slip up once. Let's say they slip up to the Browns or they slip up against Minnesota. Dallas is your 1 seed. It's not far-fetched at all that the Cowboys could potentially earn that number 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean, really, they need Green Bay to leave the door open for them, and if they do, Dallas can keep winning out into the 1 seed.
That's why it's so unfortunate the Ravens weren't able to pull that game out.
Yeah,
that would have been awesome, right?
It really was. I mean, when I was thinking like how close they were, and Andrews dropping getting that ball knocked away, and yeah, it was very close to being a very, very happy Christmas for us all. But look, there's still. I mean, what can you read off the Giants? The Packers remaining schedule?
Yeah, they play home against the Browns this week on Christmas Day. The following week, they play at Minnesota, or they play home against Minnesota. Minnesota already beat them once this year.
Yeah,
and then they play at the Lions in Week 18. Now, they'll probably beat the Lions, but you never know. You never know.
And I'll tell you what, like after watching the Lions these last few weeks, I'm not saying that they're like a tough team to beat, but they're not as easy a walkthrough that they were probably earlier in the season. They look a little bit more inspired. The Vikings, again, a potential playoff team that has already beaten them once this year in a division game that's tough. Who'd you say that the first team was? Who they play next week?
It's Cleveland. Home against the Browns. Now the Browns they should get most of their guys back. It's not an easy game, I don't think, for Green Bay. It's a game where they're probably gonna have to sweat it out.
And Cleveland's back is against the wall now, right?
They can't lose. They have to win out. Yeah,
they've got to win. So it's not going to be an easy game, and that defensive line at the very least.
It's not a given that Green Bay just walks through the next 3 games and they win them all. They're going to be favored in every game.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always matter, as we've seen in the NFL. All right, let's take one more quick break so I can tell you guys about Built Bar. This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar or even better than a candy bar, Built Bar. It's filled with so much holiday goodness, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. There's so many great flavors, double brownie, cherry, double chocolate, cookies and cream, peanut butter brownie. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCK15 and you get 15% off your next order. Just use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. All right. A couple more questions before we head out. This is a really, really important one, Landon. What's
Oh,
your
boy.
favorite Christmas movie of all time?
That's a really tough question. Die Hard.
That does not count as a Christmas movie. Come
Absolutely.
on.
We're not going to have this argument here, but it's Die Hard. So
I actually
accept
made
the
a
answer.
list. I made a list. I'm gonna run through it.
All right. I'll give you the thumbs up or thumbs down on each
All
one.
right.
Here we go. Here we go.
Number one, it's a Wonderful Life. Does that count?
Yeah, that's
Is that really a Christmas movie though?
It takes place in Christmas. That is the parameters for me. And they reference Christmas. It's a Christmas movie. So yes.
Home Alone is just absolutely perfect.
Absolutely.
Okay. Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
Oh, this is a podcast. I guess I should be saying this.
Yeah.
Thumbs down for Santa Claus.
You don't like the Santa? Oh, what's wrong with the Santa Claus?
It doesn't. Have you watched it in the last few years? It doesn't play.
I watched it like 3 days ago.
It just doesn't play as well. It's not as good as it was when I was a kid. I saw it.
Number 4, Christmas Vacation.
Oh, big thumbs up. Huge thumbs up. Yeah.
And number 5 is Home Alone 2.
Home Alone 2, absolutely underrated movie.
Is it better than number 1? Because I think you can make the argument.
I think it's as good as number 1. I think you have to put aside the fact that how did this happen to Kevin's parents again? Like how? Because that's the only thing is that you're watching it and you're just like, okay, I understand what the movie's trying to tell me. Gremlins is a great one. Great.
Gremlins is absolutely.
Someone just popped in on the chat. Gremlins for me. Rain King, I think was excellent choice. But because I like movies that combine Halloween and Christmas because those are my two favorite holidays.
Yeah.
So I like those.
All right, do you have an underrated one that doesn't quite crack your top 5, but everybody should watch?
Man, I'm still a sucker for the Charlie Brown Christmas. I mean, I know that's not necessarily a movie per se, but the Charlie Brown Christmas episode is still gets me again, as does the Charlie Brown Halloween episode. So I have that in common.
I like Rudolph. It's still one of my favorites. I watched it with my daughter the other day. Just the story and the meaning and the social things that you get out of it. Like if you have a problem, just cover it up unless you're useful for me.
Not always great lessons in some of those.
It is really funny. I laugh every time I watch it. It's so good. So we want to hear your favorite Christmas movies. So please leave us a review. Just tell us your favorite movies. Maybe we'll read some of them on Friday on our Christmas Eve show. Check us out on YouTube. Thursday, we got a crossover podcast with Chris Russell talking about the Washington football team. And man, that is going to be a lot of fun. I think we might have to bring up some of those early season previews when we were talking about the NFC East. And
that might.
Poor Patricia. She just sounded so broken when I talked to her on last week about the Giants. She's completely done with this team. I've got a feeling the rest of the NFC East probably feels the same.
Preseason optimism always turns very sour and poisonous at the end of a bad season. So I definitely understand.
He's at McCool BCB. I am at Marcus _Mosher. Enjoy the week. We'll see you guys.